Hey everyone, welcome back to Main Deck, and today I have a deck for you guys that will hopefully allow you to set all the terms of engagement in the battle. Let's get right to it. Alright everyone, as I said, today's deck I kind of tweaked and adjusted because I wanted a deck that lets you control what your opponent has as options to attack you with, and I just thought it was really fun and interesting. I have a blast playing it. It's a very mental heavy game, I suppose, and you get to really toy with a lot of areas and use some cards that not a lot of decks use. So without further ado, let's just get right into it, and we will go over the cards in this awesomely fun deck. So, the character we are going to use, no surprise here, is Kurogiri. We'll go over his suite first and his foundation, just to kind of set the stage for what I was going for with the deck, because I just kind of wanted to double down on his more control aspect of what your opponent can do and what kind of options you will have in the future, and we'll go from there. So, he's a 7-hander. 19 health character. He has Evil, Order, and Void. Of course, this deck is going to be built off of Void. There's just some key pieces that I feel really hit home with this one, and make Void not necessarily the strongest Kurogiri in the meta right now, but does what I wanted to do most successfully more often. So again, we'll just start with the abilities here. He has an Enhance. Once per turn, both your opponent and yours, keep that in mind, you get to look at the top and bottom card of your deck. You may add the bottom card of your deck to the top of your deck. It's kind of like a halfway soft, like Giro Enhance. It kind of lets you look and set up the different cards in your deck to either draw if you happen to have draw power, or just set up your checks for your next things so you know what to expect going forward as you do your pokes here and there to try to gain momentum and do your game plan. This is just a nice ability that pairs well with his foundation, which we'll get into after this, but we will go right along to the response, which is the real reason that I like this character and want to dive into it more, and excited for set 3 as well to kind of really explore all the symbols that this character has to offer. For those who don't know, the response is you commit, and whenever your rival plays an attack, you will commit Kurogiri. You add that attack to the bottom of their deck, then you choose one attack in their discard pile and add it to their hand. Keep in mind, there is a period between that. It is not, you don't have to do both parts. You just have to commit, and then you do what you can. So for example, if you found a way to curate your opponent's discard pile into not having any attacks anymore, now they don't get an attack back, and you effectively just canceled their attack on your character. Every turn you can just cancel an attack. Or if you have an attack in their discard pile that has less teeth, is going to do less things to hurt you, or you just have the block in order to block it, so you just want them to attack with that card instead, you can use this to full effect here by just committing. They'd put their attack on the bottom of the deck, putting a bad check back in their deck, and giving you some planning, because you'll know that last card is an attack. And then you just get to continue on and be like, you're attacking with this, or in most cases, you'll just be like, you don't get to attack. Like I said, you're going to be I'll go over some key pieces here that you'll be curating their discard pile in order to keep that lower on the end. So with that, we'll go right along to the other thing, the key piece that Kurogiri has that kind of doubles down on this effect. We got Dissolving the Conflict at 4 copies. We'll jump into the actions, attacks, and foundations as usual, but first I just wanted to touch on this because it's so integral to Kurogiri's game plan here. It's a 3 high block, and it has a response which is very similar to his ability, which is remove. After your rival plays an attack, you add it back to their hand. Playable only if you have 10 or less health. You only have 19 health. That means you get attacked once, maybe twice, depending on who you're fighting. You'll meet that requirement, and you'll be able to start making them replay attacks. And you might think, well, they're just going to play it again. This is true, but if they play an attack, check a 3, they have to tap 2, 3, depending on what point in the turn it is you use this. They're going to be paying resources. They may not have the resources to make that risk to play that attack again. So this gives you another turn to kind of reset, use your Kurogiri, restand them on your turn, and then put it to the bottom of their deck next turn, assuming they don't draw more gas. But it just gives you more options to get rid of attacks and stop them from hitting you. which is kind of your game plan, is just make sure they can't deal damage to you while you deal damage to them. And it also has a secondary enhance, which also kind of doubles down on Kurogiri's other ability. Once per turn, you can add the top card of your discard pile to the bottom of your deck. So this will help you get your key pieces back more consistently, stack the top of the deck at the end of your opponent's turn using this, so you can draw what you need on your turn, or set up nice checks for your turn to ensure you play the cards you want to play without having to commit or overcommit on costs. Very great pairing with this character, and as usual, we'll now can go back to our actions and just go from there. So we got 2 copies of Plus Ultra. This is more of a defensive deck, so having this Plus Ultra here to stop the super speedy attacks or super menacing attacks that you just need something to have a pseudo guaranteed, block check, which with Kurogiri's once per turn, stacking the top 2 cards essentially, or at least knowing the top card is a good check or not, makes it pretty easy to stop attacks with Plus Ultra. We also have some other things in here to help make sure that it's a mid, so you can block this full block most of the time, assuming you have the what's on board, or even just half block sometimes is all you need. And being a set 1 character, you can also use this discard 1 momentum to double your attack speed and damage. We do have a very important momentum outlet, but outside of that, you're free to use your momentum for stuff like this to kind of boost that extra damage or get that extra speed that you need to close the game out. Only running 2 copies of those though, because we don't need too much of it clogging our deck, and we'll move right along to our attack lineup. So we got 4 copies of Rebounding Sidekick. It's a nice 4 diff, 3 mid for 4 damage. Fury Kick, most importantly, it's a flash, allowing your opponent to not really have any interaction with this and just telling them, hey, you got to deal with it or not, your choice. And a choice it will be, because it has, if this attack is added to your momentum, you add it face up. It also has an enhance from momentum that allows you to add it to your card pool, and this attack gets +2 or -2 damage, giving you both an offensive or defensive outlet for this. And given you're probably only in attack every once in a while, unless you're trying to really close the game out that turn, you're just going to kind of poke here and there. Having an extra card in your card pool isn't that detrimental, and especially if you just got a bunch of them stacked up, you can just kind of toss a bunch of them in the pool if this is the last attack for the turn and really make it beefy. It also has the response, which is part of the reason, or one of the main reasons it's in the deck at 4 of, is after this attack is blocked, you add it to your momentum after it resolves. This allows you to get a little bit quicker, snappy momentum. It also means that no matter what happens, unless they have, Faith Shield or something that's going to stop this effect from going off, you are getting momentum whether they block this or not. And momentum is kind of important as we move right along to this next card here. It'll be Zero Gravity Barrier. Now this is a 2 check and we do run 4, but we run a little less attacks than normal, so it's kind of balances out that way in my head. But this card will pay dividends if you can get momentum, and like I said, we have this plus another attack that just basically guarantees you'll get momentum unless they got some sort of throw tech or faith shields running around. This one here is a 3 low for 6, does some beefy damage if they decide not to block it. It's a nice mid block, and if it's added to momentum, it's also added face up. And this is the reason we're running it in the deck, is this enhance right here. Enhance in momentum, you remove it from the game and discard 1 momentum. You'll add the rival's attack to their momentum, and then they may draw a card. This is great because it's just another way to cancel the opponent's attacks without them even having a chance to make you block. They do something. You can even, with this one too, since it's on enhanced speed, you can wait till they do something really juicy to push that advantage. Like let's say they have momentum, they call your bluff, they use powerful once, maybe twice, and you're like, okay, this attack's going away, putting it out, and then you can save your Kurogiri for the next attack, or vice versa. You can use Kurogiri, then when they play their real ace card, you just dump them with this. You can only use it maximum of 4 times, given it has you remove it as a cost from the game, but it still is great. Being able to cancel an attack is great. We have multiple ways of getting other momentum basically free, so this should be live most of the time. And we also have a way, once we get to foundations, of making this get into momentum itself without even having to hit with it, because that's the next thing. Is it's a low attack, it's kind of slow. Being low, it might get through on half damage, but most of the time people are going to try to block this, especially seeing you already have Kurogiri on board. They don't want to have to fight through 2 things. But we have other ways of getting into momentum, which we'll get into later. And of course, it also has 1 more enhance. Helping you get it into momentum, because it is a slow attack, you can switch the attack speed and damage. So you just flip-flop them, 6 speed, 3 damage. Since the important part of this card is it being in momentum, 9 times out of 10, unless you're confident they're not going to be able to block it or you know they can't block it, you're going to be using that enhance just to make it super fast so they can't stop it. The next one is going to be Confident Counter Styke. Yes, I said Styke because as you can see here written on the card, they forgot the R, or maybe they didn't and they're just trying to coin a new term. This one is also a great mid block, so it allows you to block or half block, whatever you wish. Nice 4 diff, easy to play. It's a 5 speed, easier to get momentum when things are fast, especially since you have other attacks they're probably going to want to block instead. This deals 4 damage. This is a nice setup as well because it has an enhance if your last attack was blocked. This attack gets plus 3 damage. So, you know, you're throwing stuff out. It's probably going to be for decent damage with some of the, you know, enhances we're going to be pushing. Nothing is going to be crazy damage, but it'll be enough to where it's not going to feel good to face tank. And people generally like to try to block stuff, especially if it's fairly easy to block. So in this case, when they block, you just play this next. It gets plus 3 damage. Now it has a nice, you know, beefy attack, and they feel bad for blocking. But the other reason it's in here is because we're defensive. We want a bunch of cool defensive effects. And also it's partially in here, not necessarily the best choice, but I really love the design of this card because response. After you block with this card, your opponent loses 2 health. They may discard a card from their hand instead to cancel this effect. And this is important in here specifically because we're putting attacks we don't want them to play back into their hand. They're generally going to hold those attacks because they want to use them next turn, so they'll maybe play a couple foundations, maybe block with them, but in this case it gives them the ultimatum where you're going to burn 2 or you're going to have to get rid of that attack I just had you pocket in your hand unintentionally. So it kind of just, no matter how you slice it, if you block with this card, you're negating damage, you're potentially burning them, pushing the game clock, or you're making them discard the attack you didn't want them to play in the first place, making whatever option they choose very beneficial for you. The next one we got is Hardened Jab. 3 copies of this bad boy. It's a great high block. Again, very easy to play at 4 diff. A little on the slow side with 3 speed, but we don't care too much about that. It has 5 damage, so it's one of those things, it's just like, go ahead, block this. This is the least threatening thing for you to block, or for me anyway, because 0 gravity barriers, they're going to want to stop those. Confident Counter Stikes, if they blocked it, they're going to want to block that because it's more damage. Grasping Tape Toss, which is next, they maybe want to block. It's a throw. We'll get into that in a second. But the main reason it's here is add 1 face down foundation from your stage to your hand and build the top card of your deck face down. We have a handful of effects when we get to foundations that we want to make sure we can use and reuse and abuse. One of them, for example, is Dissolving Conflict. Just kidding, not Dissolving Conflict. We got Confused is the main one we're going to be targeting with this. We'll get into why later. But we also have some other options such as First Impressions, Manly Passionate Guy, and the like. We'll get into those later. But just know that we have a handful of foundations that do a lot of work for us, that being able to pick up after we've committed them when they're face down and we've already flipped them for their effect, to then build the top card, basically refreshing that face down and then having it in hand to play at the end of turn to then reuse that effect over and over again. I've been debating putting this at 4 copies, but the other cards just do more work than this does. If I were to trade it out, if you wanted my suggestion, trade it out for Confident Counter Styke. Like I said, part of this is just because I like this card personally, so I wanted to have it in here, and I really like its block effect. But if you wanted more use out of your utilities, more Hardened Jab is probably the option. And the last attack is 4 copies of Grasping Tape Toss. This one, of course, is in here because it basically guarantees momentum 9 times out of 10, unless they got something like Wall Cling. It has stun, a little bit of stun. It's throw. And if it's not blocked, they'll commit an additional foundation, incentivizing them to burn their blocks on stuff that are already going to deal damage. And again, if they end up blocking this, they're still taking damage, and then you can follow it up with a Confident Counter Styke and boost its damage because they wasted a block on the mid, or on the mid throw that, basically is already dealing damage anyway. And if they happen to go into deadlock, it has a nice juicy deadlock enhance of adding 2 of their foundations to their bottom of their deck, which is, pretty punishing because you get to choose it. So you'll be adding their 2 best pieces on their board and just putting them away basically for the rest of the game. Because let's be real, by the time they get to the bottom of the deck, they're going to be hurting. As you can see from this deck, I'm trying to make sure all of their attacks get out as soon as possible and are removed, so they just can't attack once they cycle their deck, especially if they get to the second cycle, if it even makes it that far. But getting them to the first cycle means most of their attacks are probably going to be gonzo, and you don't have to worry about them hitting you as often, which then doubles down on the fact that Kurogiri's commit gets even more deadly, because the less attacks they have on the second go-around, the less chances they're going to have of being able to chain things together or have something in the discard that you have to give them. So moving right along, we'll go to our foundations, starting with First Impressions. It's a low block, nice 2-diff, flip. If your first attack, or if this is your first attack this combat phase, it gets 3 damage. If it was blocked, your next attack gets 3 speed. This will help you set up some nice speed plays, like let's say a great one like I mentioned before. You First Impressions, your Grasping Tape Toss, boosting its damage. Then they block it because they don't want to take a boatload of damage, and it's really easy to block. Then they give +3 speed. You play Confident Counter Styke next. A 8 speed for 7 damage is pretty rough as well. It kind of just penalizes them for blocking that Grasping Tape Toss, which 9 times out of 10, you know, blocking 4 damage on a really easy block is pretty easy to do, especially if it's going to commit a second foundation if they don't block it. It makes it really easy for them to fall into that trap at least once. And just in general, being able to force damage push, or, you know, on something like Rebounding Sidekick too, or no, you can't use it on it, it's a flash, but either way, forcing damage or getting speed is always a nice ultimatum to give your opponent. Kind of puts the play in your hands, if you will, because you're just kind of putting them between a rock and a hard place. Next, we got 2 copies of Taiyaki Fanatic. I thought about increasing it from 2, just because since we are a little bit more on the control side and we do want to stop them from doing, you know, nasty stuff to you, and sometimes they will still get that, you know, bomb attack on you that you can't just have them, you know, shuffle away. So in this case, you could destroy it, and if they play an enhance ability on Asset or Foundation, it just cancels it. Allows you to stop some of the really bad stuff that they're going to do, or in some cases, it allows you to stop the wall clings so you can make sure to get your stuff through. And if they go to deadlock, you just force them to discard cards, which that's their blocks, that's their attacks, that's their life force, basically. Get rid of their hand and they can't stop you from doing stuff. The next one is that's in great importance. 2 diff, 3 high, 4 copies of this bad boy, Confused. For those who don't know what it does, enhance, flip, remove 1 attack from your rival's discard pile, which is important because then it makes it less likely that you have to give them an attack with Kurogiri if they got nothing in the discard pile. And then you choose one of the keywords on it, and whatever this attack is, loses all that keywords and it cannot gain keywords. So it helps you defend against the attack that's currently being played, and it gets rid of attacks from the discard, helping your Kurogiri effect to be a little more potent if you can get that last attack out of there. And it removes the attack from the game, meaning they have less attacks on that second shuffle and less options on that second shuffle, making it that much more likely that if you can deck them at least once, that they will never be able to get a big attack string on you. With that combined with the hardened jab, being able to use that foundation multiple times in a couple turn cycles makes it really nasty to try to play against if you can get it out early. The next one, we got 4 copies of Manic Friendship. It's a nice spam foundation that does once per turn, ±1 damage. It gives you great ability to boost your stuff on offense and decrease their damage on defense. Sometimes with some of the minus damage you have here, along with Spooky, you can sometimes just make it so their attack is, you know, dealing 0 damage, and you don't even have to worry about blocking in some cases. Moving right along, we got 1 copy of Spooky. Very great foundation. I recommend having at least 1 if you can run it, just because there's so many instances where I found it useful. You commit it, switch the speed and damage of your rival's attack. You can use it to use, you know, minus speed, swap it so now the damage is nothing. You can put minus damage, swap it so the speed is super low and you can block it easily. Sometimes they use powerful or EX and you really need them to not have that speed or damage. You just swap it and it's great. It gives you a great option a lot of the time. 2 copies of Learning the Standards. I really like this card the more I use it, and it kind of helps slow down your opponent. I've thought about adding more of this as well. It's just we're really heavy on mid blocks in the deck, and we have quite a few 2 diffs, so adding more 2 diffs with mid block didn't seem like the greatest idea at the time, but its effect is really nice. You can flip, after they build an asset or foundation during combat phase, and you flip it, basically just making it a blank foundation instead of having whatever effects they may have had. But the most important reason it's in here is response or move. After you take damage from an unblocked attack, your rival must play a non-attack card as their next form or end their combat phase. Since we're trying to stop them and create hurdles in front of them to being able to attack you as much as humanly possible, this is why I kind of wanted to bump this up for more than 2, but right now it's sitting at 2. It does have the cost to remove, so use it once and it's out. But it allows you to use your damage mitigation like I was talking about before. Just take a hit to the face that's like 2, 1, 0 damage, or sorry, can't be 0 because 0 doesn't count as dealing damage, but you drop the damage to something that's much more palatable, like 1, 2, maybe 3 damage, you don't mind taking it, and then it stops them from playing an attack, breaking combos, and potentially making them fail or overcommit in order to play another attack. Because even best case scenario for them, they play attack once, they have to play a non-attack, then they play a third attack. That third attack's at +2. Even a 4 diff is going to be a 6. So that makes it a little less palatable to play that, especially if they're counting on some sort of combo plays, because now combo's broken. This, of course, changes if it's someone like Momo and they have Foundation as part of their combo. But I digress. You probably wouldn't use it then in that case, knowing that they have something like that in their kit. Moving along, we'll just kind of skim over Dissolving the Conflict. We went over it already. We have 4 copies, and we have 4 copies of Rockin' Attitude. It helped clear out our block modifiers because it's a low block, but more importantly, this is the other way of getting stuff into our momentum. Most importantly, 0 gravity barrier without needing to attack with it. So, its effect is response. Remove it from the game. After you block with a charge or stun attack, add it to your momentum. And as we see here, 0 gravity barrier is a charge attack, and we also have a stun attack over here if for some reason your back's against a wall and you really need that extra momentum. Like let's say you have a 0 grav in there already, it's the opponent's turn, you only have your Grasping Tape Toss to block with in hand, you can block with it, put it in momentum, now 0 gravity barrier is live. So we only got those 8 attacks that can really pop off on this, but it's in here at 4 of, just because getting 0 gravity barrier in your momentum is very potent and very important. So having as many ways as you can, especially when they're going in on your terms, as you get to choose when to block, and it doesn't say it has to be a full block, you just have to block. 0 gravity barrier being a 1 mid block means no matter what your opponent throws, chances are you're going to be able to block it with it and get it into momentum. The next one is 2 copies of Manly Passionate Guy, great spam foundation. Okay block and flip after you block with a foundation, build it face up. This allows you to build faster on your opponent's turn, get more defense going, and add some defensive pieces that you have, such as Confused or Rockin' Attitude or Dissolving the Conflict or Learning the Standards or Spooky in on your turn after you block with them. And again, we have Hardened Jabs, so all these flip costs that we've been going over are able to be reused multiple times, which is another reason why I'm a little bit more okay with some of these being at 2 of rather than 3 or 4, just because we have a couple ways to recycle them if need be. Next, we got 4 copies of Gotcha. It's really the only 0 cost that does anything for us, so we needed them in here just so we have that little extra spam, just because we do have a lot of 2 diffs. And it also does something fairly relevant if you commit stuff during your turn, which we don't have a lot of outlets for. But if your opponent stuns, it allows you to reduce the speed of things. It has response after this card is committed. In the enhanced step, the attack gets +1 or -1 speed, playable while committed. And it has an okay low block, and like I said, we needed to shore up a block line a little. It's not too important to shore up a block line because we have a couple, we have tape in the deck, which we'll go over later, which helps us change what the block zones are. And we can kind of just get rid of cards with our Dissolving the Conflict and Kurogiri if it's a block zone we don't particularly want to deal with. Next, we got 2 copies of Think Fast. It's a unique, which is why there's only 2 copies. We don't have a ton of ways of recycling it if we had too many of them. And we have a lot of mid blocks already, so we didn't need that. But unique, still great to have on the field. It allows us to commit 1 foundation, such as Gotcha, to get that speed, and change the zone of the attack. Specifically your attack, so we can change, our mids to highs, lows, whatever we see fit. We will see at least 1, maybe 2 cards in the opponent's hand, as we have ways to put stuff back in their hand. But it just allows you to kind of change the zone on your terms, and it's decent at that. And if you happen to change the zone for any reason, it gets +1/+1. And along with tape, which we'll go over last, it also has the ability to change the zone. Probably going to be using that on defense more often than not, but let's say you need that extra speed and damage, you can use it and then get the bonus from this. Next, we have 4 copies of Villains Defeated. This is another flip cost that's going to allow us to remove attacks from the game and help us push our win con of making the opponent just lose all their teeth and not be able to fight back. It has response, flip. After you discard any number of cards due to a rival's effect, you draw a card. This is playable while committed, so this is a very nice effect as well if you're fighting discard. But the main reason it's in here is flip after your rival's blocked attack resolves. You remove their attack from the game and you heal 2. Being a 19 health character, it's not going to be the nicest to take hits, so being able to have a little bit of heal, remove an attack on block, which we'll be doing blocking because we'll want to make sure to get our 0 gravs in there, or just not take damage, maybe confident counter stiking. It allows us just to block, take no damage, heal a little bit, and remove an attack. It just kind of does everything we need, and it shores up our high block line as well. And last but not least, for our foundation lineup, we got tape. It's a great spam, that's why it's in here at 4, because we don't have a lot of those in this deck, so we need to shore that up. And it happened to help us a lot because our blocks on low specifically wasn't too high. I think it's like 12 or 13, not a ton of low blocks, but this will help shore that up. That combined with Kurogiri to kind of put their low attacks on the bottom when you don't have a low block. And then if you have tape on the field, you flip it to a mid. We have a ton of really high value mid blocks that are really low on the block modifier. So this is partially why it's the main reason we also have it in here as well, because you can flip, change this attack to a mid zone. You have plenty of ways to block it in that case on great block modifiers, and that makes it great. And then you also have flip, this attack gets -2 speed if it's mid. So if you have multiple tapes out and you really need to block it, flip it to a mid, flip it to -2 damage, block with one of your many mid blocks, and you're good to go. And that is the main deck list. If I had to make changes, again, Plus Ultra is good. I might swap it out for something. There's a few key things in set 3 that look like they might be interesting. I also have stuff here in the sideboard. For those who don't know, you can head over to Patreon if you're so inclined. We'll be going over these in a moment. But my sideboards for these videos aren't true sideboards. Please don't look at that and think that's what I would take to a tournament. They're more just cards that I'm considering putting in the deck as I test it further. For one reason or another, if you want to hear the insight onto why they're potentially in the sideboard for swapping out into mainboard, you can go ahead and check out our Patreon video, like I just described, where I'll go over the cards to be considered, which moves us right along. If you're interested in the Patreon, click below. If you're already in the Patreon, thank you very much for supporting us. Hopefully you guys are enjoying yourselves and liking all the sick content we have both here and on the Discord. We also have a Discord, for those who don't know, where we run automated is not the right word. We have leagues that we run every month for a handful of different games. MHA, of course, is one of them. It does have prizing, and it's completely free to join up on these leagues. You get to play on your own time. You get a week to play your 3 matches that you wish to record. You can play with anyone that's in the league, and it's very flexible to make sure that both you and your opponents all have time to play. We know everyone has busy schedules, and we also know that some people are overseas and have weird time zones they got to work with, so it makes it a little more difficult for them to play, and this gives them a great outlet to do that. For any information, they'll be all in the bottom bar there. You can click wherever or send us a message. We'd be happy to talk with you. And thank you guys for checking out this deck tech. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed telling you guys, and have a fantastic rest of your guys' day.